Hey y'all, Bobby Stein, September 18th, 2024. I'm at home. I'm working on my next Greenville video in 1963 as seen through the eyes of the Delta Democrat Times. It's pretty interesting to go to the library and get the old DDTs that are on microfilm and go through them a little bit at a time. I've probably looked at 5 or 6 hours worth of old Delta Democrat Times. What surprised me the most is the amount of national and international news that was in the paper back then. In 1963, we had the Delta Democrat. You could also subscribe to the Clarion Ledger out of Jackson or the Commercial Appeal out of Memphis. My family got both the Democrat and the Commercial Appeal newspapers. So y'all go back with me to 1963. Greenville was hopping. The towboat industry was strong. The cotton crop was one of the best that had been had in years. Also, the water on the river was almost at a record low. Anyway, y'all go back with me. I hope you enjoy the video. And folks, we will see you next video. Before there was Stein Mart, there was Stein SelfService store on the 200 block of Washington Avenue by the levee. It was just one of probably 10 or 15 stores on that block. And my uncle Jake Stein bought all the buildings but two. I think Moe's, Hamp, and Wasson Insurance Company was one of the buildings. There was also a cafe on the corner that he didn't buy. But the rest of it, the buildings were tore down and Stein Mart was born. I believe they opened in the fall of 1964. I wanted to throw this in. This was Diane Rogers' daddy that had Rogers Garden Center. It was out on Highway 82 East by Woodlawn subdivision. This was an article about the president of Chicago Mill visiting the Greenville plant. His wife's mother lived here. Chicago Mill also had 4 other plants. All the plants, there was one in Greenville, there were plants in Arkansas, Louisiana, Georgia, and Chicago, Illinois. Interestingly, he was plant manager from 1921 to 31 and assumed the presidency of Chicago Mill in 1963. At that time, the plant was making wooden crates. There was a mayoral election in 1963. Pat Dunn was running against E.H. Gray, and George Archer had been mayor since 1947. Pat Dunn won the mayoral election. I just wanted to show a quick shot of one of the classified pages in the paper. It was jam-packed with ads. That had to be one of the most profitable parts of the Delta Democrat. This was the front page of the Democrat the day after the mayoral election, showing that Pat Dunn won the mayor's race. Ben Wasson was William Faulkner's first literary agent. He was also the arts editor of the Delta Democrat Times. And in this article, he talks about Ellen Douglas's second book, Black Clouds, White Clouds, which was reviewed by the New York Times. He also talks about Hotting Carter's new book coming out and that he would be reviewing it. School segregation had been found unlawful in 1954, but the schools were still segregated in 1962. The school board put a bond issue on the ballot to raise $650,000. Most of that would be to build a new white high school on East Alexander, making Susie Trigg a school for black children. The bond issue was defeated. This article was about 2 of the oldest members of King's Daughters and Sons Circle Number 2 in Greenville. We know this group today to give out grants to civic groups and other charities, but it started out as a group of 10 women banded together to give medical aid to people that lived on shanty boats that were tied up at the foot of the levee in Greenville. King's Daughters and Sons was a national group, and Greenville was the second group chartered in the state of Mississippi. Yazoo City was the first. I'm not 100% sure, but I would believe that they would be the reason why King's Daughters Hospital was eventually built. The river stage at this point in 1963 was 8.75 feet, which was really low. The lowest it had ever been was in 1940, where it got down to 5 feet, according to Gene Grassi. This article is not about Greenville, but it's about the start of Nashville being the center for country music. And 3 engineers in 1948 started Castle Records and recruited artists from the Grand Ole Opry to cut records. And this was the start of the Nashville sound. Marine Welding delivered one towboat, the May Ellen, to Ned Thompson, who went on to found Warfield Towing Company in Greenville. This was the paper, November 22nd, 1963, the day that John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas. The DDT at that time was an afternoon newspaper, and how they got this edition out, it must be remarkable. That must be a remarkable story. I was in the 7th grade at Bass. I remember I was in Ms. Harbison's social studies class, and I remember the shock we all felt when Coach Dunaway came on the loudspeaker and announced President Kennedy's death. This was the Sunday edition of the Delta Democrat Times, November 24th, 1963. Where were y'all when President Kennedy was assassinated? Folks, I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Please leave your comments below, and we will see you next video.